I remember when he came out talking to people around the league, and one of the things that kept coming up was he played under Nick Saban and he played under Lincoln Riley in college. And this is a guy who everybody believes has the football IQ to be a good player, and the athleticism is clearly there. And I think when we watched last year, I think his arm is there. I don't have any questions about that. So if those three things are there, I think you have a decently high ceiling. Now,
all right, let's get a third opinion on that. There's my buddy, Matt Verderame. A little late jumping aboard, but we're glad we got him. Matt, we're just kicking around the fact that the Eagles' third-string quarterback, Nick Mullins, has looked pretty poor this year in both their exhibition games and their practices. I was not a big fan of the signing. I know he played well in 2018. He did not play well last year for me. I didn't know why the Eagles wanted him as a third-string quarterback. Didn't make sense to, at least to me. What do you think about Nick Mullins as a backup quarterback in this league?
I think he's okay. Look, I think Kyle Shanahan made him look better than he is, which is typical of any quarterback that Kyle Shanahan has worked with, right? Now, Nick Mullins obviously has a lot lower of a ceiling than most of Shanahan's quarterbacks. And so if I'm the Eagles, you have Hurts, have Flacco. Like, I would look around once you get to that cut down day where everybody's got to get to 53. And I would look around and say, all right, who are the guys that get cut and who can we go out and get? You know, you're going to have a lot of undrafted free agent quarterbacks that are out there that might actually have shown something during camp, during preseason. It's just they didn't make that team for whatever reason. You might have some guys who are veteran guys who are out there. I mean, I know Philadelphia, like Nick Foles, like he might end up being moved by Chicago at some point here. He's not going to be first team, second team for Chicago. There are a lot of names out there. If you want to go with a guy who I actually think could be a starter in this league again at some point, Gardner Minshew. Like, if you aren't convinced that Hurts is the guy and you're not in love with Flacco as a backup even, Minshew's a guy who I look at and say, now you'd have to trade for him. He's not going to get cut, but is he somebody who, maybe he's worth kicking tires on? So there's going to be options. There's going to be options here in the next couple of weeks, and the Eagles can make their decision on who they'd like to try and go for.
Matt, I was going to save this for later, but since you brought Gardner Minshew up, I'll ask him now. Is Urban just trying to show Gardner Minshew off to teams by having him with the first-team offense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Look, there's no way that they're going to play Gardner Minshew week one. I refuse to believe that. And I like Gardner Minshew. I think Minshew's better than a lot of people think he is. I don't think he's great, but he's a competent quarterback. He can play a little bit. Young guy, only entering his third year. I was incredibly impressed by him as a rookie when he was thrust into the situation. Week one, Foles gets hurt against Kansas City in the second quarter of the game. He came in, he played well. He played well really on a team that had no business being even halfway decent that year offensively. So, I look at that situation. Yes, Urban Meyer knows he's got Trevor Lawrence. He's the number one overall pick. Everybody's known Lawrence is going to be the number one overall pick for a couple of years now. So if you're Jacksonville, you cannot sit Trevor Lawrence on this team. I would be stunned if this isn't just a little bit of a showcase here with Minshew.
I agree wholeheartedly there. All right, since we're in quarterback evaluation mode, Matt, tonight you got the Saints playing. Both Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston are going to play. Jameis is going to start. I'm not a fan of either one coming into the year. I was a fan of Jameis coming out of Florida State. He has been just a interception waiting to happen the last couple of years in Tampa. He says he learned it is a new quarterback and a different player being at the foot of Drew Brees last year. I need to see it with my own two eyes. I saw Tatum. I'm getting Jason Tatum and Taysom Hill mixed up here. Taysom Hill lose to the Eagles last season. Didn't look like an NFL quarterback to me. What are the Saints going to do at QB? I know tonight he's going to have a major influence. How do you see it shaking out?
I think Winston's got to be the guy. And I'm with you, Jody. I don't love either one of them. Like, to me, Taysom Hill is just he's a guy. He's a gadget guy who can play a half dozen snaps. Maybe he can be a competent backup quarterback, but Taysom Hill is also like 31. Like, I think sometimes people think he's just really young quarterback with upside. Taysom Hill is in his 30s. So I don't know how much upside there is. And with Winston, look, it's hard to throw 30 picks in today's NFL. That almost takes an effort to do that. You really, with the rules that are in place today, you have to be trying to throw that amount of interceptions. So did he get better last year sitting there with Sean Payton and Drew Brees? One would hope, but at the same point, I don't know. I mean, I'm with you. It's kind of you have to see it type of thing. That said, if you ask me who do I think is a better shot at just having one really good season, it's Winston. Because the potential, his arm is terrific. You know he can throw for a lot of yardage. So is there a world where he goes out and throws for 4,500 yards and gets it down to 15 picks? I mean, yeah, it's possible. Like, I think he could put together a really good year before I think Taysom Hill could. The problem is without Michael Thomas, who are you throwing to? That is the biggest concern I'd have if I'm the Saints. And that is the only reason I'd consider starting Taysom Hill is if the Saints just go, look, we're not going to win throwing the ball anyway. We have to be a run-first team with Kamara. Let's just run all this read option stuff, and let's hope that that's the way we can win these games. But I just personally don't believe that that's a strategy you can win with week in and week out in the NFL.
Matt, I'm a big fan of Jalen Hurts. I think he could be really good for this team. But if we're talking quarterbacks in the NFL, I just don't think he can get to the ceiling of a Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, a Josh Allen. But where do you see this guy's ceiling potentially being if the Eagles give him that opportunity?
I'm not sure, but I'll say this. I remember when he came out talking to people around the league, and one of the things that kept coming up was he played under Nick Saban and he played under Lincoln Riley in college. And this is a guy who everybody believes has the football IQ to be a good player, and the athleticism is clearly there. And I think when we watched last year, I think his arm is there. I don't have any questions about that. So if those three things are there, I think you have a decently high ceiling. Now, do I think it could be Mahomes or Rodgers? No, because I think Mahomes and Rodgers are so unique unto themselves that it's hard to get to that point. But I like his talent. I like Jalen Hurts a lot when he was coming out. I thought he was a good pick at the time. I know a lot of people killed the Eagles for taking him in the second round. I was not one of those people. I thought that it was a good selection. My biggest concern is the team around him going to allow him to flourish? I mean, this is just it's a group with a lot of young receivers, first-year head coach, although I think Sirianni, I know he's gotten banged around ever since his press conference. I actually think he's a pretty interesting hire in the sense that he was a very good offensive mind in Indianapolis. So, as far as the ceiling, look, could he be a Dak? Could he be a Dak Prescott? Is that possible? Like, I wouldn't say that that's impossible. Like, I think that's in play. And if he becomes a player the level of a Dak Prescott, pretty good player. Yeah, I think you take that, right? So does he get there? I don't know, but I wouldn't rule that out as being, a type of ceiling he could get to.
Here's one of the things that I've had problems with during preseason, Matt, and tell me if I'm being overly annoying or sensitive or whatever word you want to use to describe me. Certain players not playing at all have not gotten on the field, like Daniel Jones of the Giants. What has Daniel Jones done in his NFL career that merits him being so protected he can't get on the field? That Brady guy down in Tampa has taken more snaps, and he's older than Methuselah, but he gets out there and takes preseason snaps, but Daniel Jones can't take a one. What's going on in the NFL in these preseason games where they're so overly protected?
Daniel Jones has done plenty the first couple of years to merit not getting on the field, but not because he shouldn't be protected. I think, look, I don't get it, and I understand teams don't want guys to get hurt. People or teams have made investments in guys now more than ever before, of course, financially. But I always look at the best teams in the league. The best teams in the league, a lot they play their guys. Kansas City just played Mahomes for like a half of football. I mean, the Chiefs weren't afraid. The Chiefs played their starting defense the entire first half in Arizona. And anybody who watched that game, the Cardinals practice on that field day out and day in, day out, and it looked like it. That field just beat to hell, and the Chiefs put everybody out there for a whole half of football. You mentioned the Bucs. Brady has played this preseason. They haven't played a ton as starters, but they've played. And so I always wonder, I know the Chargers, now they've had the injury bug, it seems like, every year for a decade. They haven't played most of their guys. I always wonder if that backfires. All right, so now week one, you need to be ready to go immediately. And I think, there's a method to go back to KC for a second with Andy Reid. Mahomes has never lost a game in September. Like, I do think there's something to that. Like, they come into the season, they're ready to go. They've played a couple of games worth of time in the preseason. So if you're the Rams, who they don't play anybody, if you're the Chargers, their team doesn't play anybody, Tennessee, haven't seen any of those guys. I think it puts a lot of pressure on you to not be rusty. And as we all know in the NFL, you're rusty for 2 weeks. That's a problem. Like, if you're 0-2 in the NFL, you may not make the playoffs, or even if you do, you may miss out on the top seed or a top 2 seed. So I'm with you, Jody. I don't love that. I think you play. You need to play. Even if it's a couple series, okay, but you need to at least get out there and kind of knock off some of that rust before you get into week 1, week 2, so on and so forth.
Matt, I think one of the most frustrating teams I'm going to watch this year is the Denver Broncos, and it's because they have talent. Their wide receiver core is ridiculously good, but that quarterback situation, I'm sorry, I like Drew Lock coming out, but it's a joke between him and Bridgewater. Do they need to get somebody in there?
Yeah, they do, and I'm with you. Look, I actually, when all that stuff with Rodgers was floating around the night of the draft, I remember thinking, if they get Aaron Rodgers, they're a Super Bowl contender, because that defense is really good, and their weaponry is better than a lot of people think. Cortland Sutton's coming back off the ACL. You have Jerry Jeudy. You have Noah Fant, Tim Patrick, right? A decent offensive line. Not great, but decent. But you're right. You look at the quarterback situation, and I've had a lot of Broncos fans scream at me over Twitter about this all offseason. I don't take them seriously because their quarterbacks stink. It doesn't matter. Like, in today's NFL, if you don't have a decent quarterback, you have no shot. And if you look at that division, Kansas City's winning 13, 14 games. It's going to happen as long as they're healthy. The Chargers with Herbert, you got a new head coach. You never know how that's going to shake. If the coach is even halfway decent, they're probably a 10-win team. The Raiders are no good, but what is the ceiling? Third, if you're Denver with that quarterback? To me, I would roll with Bridgewater only because Locke led the league in picks last year and played 13 games. That defense is really, really good. If I'm Fangio, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, look, we can win playing that Mark Sanchez type of Jets football where, look, we're going to be really careful. We're going to run the ball. We're going to throw when we have to. And we believe that our defense can win us some games if we win the turnover battle. The problem with Locke is if you start him, you're probably not going to win the turnover battle. And if that's the case, your defense can only do so much. So I agree. It's kind of like picking between, it's just a lesser of two evil situation. But I actually think Bridgewater is like borderline competent as a starter where Locke isn't. So we'll see how it shakes. But if Bridgewater starts, I think they at least have an outside shot of being like a 9-8 type team. Where with Locke, I don't even think that's in play as a ceiling.
All right, let's see if you jump immediately to where I'm at, because I think this is actually a easy question to answer, but you might have to think about it for a second. What's the best division in football this year?
NFC West.
It is.
West. Yeah,
see, smart minds think alike. Boom. He just gave me the answer. Boom, exactly right. Thank you very much.
It's the only division. I actually said this to a friend of mine the other day that I really think a team could be over 500 in that division to be in last place. I think Arizona could go 9-8 and be dead last in division. Now, I will say this. We all know that that's not how it's going to work. Some team will have injuries. Some team will disappoint, whatever. But if you're just looking at it, full strength, everybody's going at it, how's it going to look? I think you could make a case. The Niners, the Rams, the Seahawks, all of them could be a Super Bowl team. Now, the problem's going to be the Buccaneers are in a joke of a division. The Packers are in a pretty easy division. And so one of those teams probably be the 1 seed. And you're going to have to, the NFC West, they're going to beat the hell out of each other. And then you're going to have, the team might win the division who's really good, who's 11-6. Right, and then but they're the 3 seed, and they're gonna have to go on the road for a couple games in the postseason. I think that's where it gets tough. But that is a really good division. And the Niners, like, you have questions at quarterback, but that roster is excellent. The Rams, You don't have a question at quarterback. At least I don't. I think Stafford's a very good player. And they're very good. Seattle, that offense should be one of the best in the league. And defensively, I don't know how good they're going to be, but offensively, they're going to score some points. So I love that division. I will say, I think the AFC North is a very good division as well. Cincinnati should be better. Pittsburgh, like you look at Pittsburgh, and I don't think Pittsburgh should be good, but Tomlin will make them good. They'll win 9 games based off the fact Tomlin's there, and then Baltimore and Cleveland will fight it out. So I think it's a really good division. The NFC West has got to be king of the hill in that regard.
Matt, we always talk about nationally. The team that we think is going to surprise people. I'm going to reverse it for you, and I already got my team here. The team that's going to disappoint people the most, and to me, it's the New York Football Giants. I just think they're a terrible football team. I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, I'll give you my team in a second. I think the Giants are really interesting in the sense, if Jones isn't good, then yeah, they're going to be terrible, right? To me, it just comes down to, can Daniel Jones limit his turnovers and make a couple of big plays? Now, for 2 years, he's shown a glimmer here, a glimmer there, but he turns the ball over a ton. So, I don't know. I don't know what to think of the Giants. I don't know what to think of Daniel Jones. If he's good, I can make a case where they're actually halfway decent. I don't think they're more than a 500 team, but if he's not good, I can make a case where they win 5 games. I will go, because of your old friend in Philly, I'm out on Indianapolis. Everybody is so high on Indy. They talk about Wentz like he's the guy that was there 3 years ago. Carson Wentz was awful last season. Now, I get it. Like, I understand the Eagles had a ton of injuries, all the excuses, fine. I watched every Eagles game last year, every game, whether it was live or going back watching it on Game Pass. He was atrocious. The Eagles are paying him $34 million not to be there. And people act like he's going to go in Indianapolis and just be great. Who's Indy's best weapon offensively? Like, Jonathan Taylor's a nice running back. Who's the best receiver? T.Y. Hilton? Like, that's great if it's 5 years ago. T.Y. Hilton's old. I don't get it. I don't understand this. They have an offensive line where Eric Fisher's coming off a torn Achilles. Who knows when he's going to be back? Quentin Nelson's coming off injury. Defensively, I love their front seven. Their secondary is not great. Kenny Moore's a good corner. Beyond that, I have a lot of questions. Like, I think Indy's okay. I think they got worse at quarterback, though. And Indy barely made the playoffs last year. So I look at the Colts, and where everybody's going crazy, I look at that division and go, geez, if the Titans can't win that division, they ought to quit after all the moves they made this offseason.
Damn, Verderame, you and I are on the exact same page. The NFC West is the best division in football. The AFC North is the second best division, and Carson Wentz is not turning Indianapolis around. So I'm 3 for 3 with you. Let's see if you want to join me on this one. Here's the last one. Quarterback ratings, whatever, the quarterback rating. I know there's the QBR, which isn't the quarterback rating. So I'm not talking about the QBR. I'm talking about quarterback rating. I think that this year, Tua Tagovailoa is going to be a top 10 quarterback in this league. Yay or nay?
We'll have to go 3 for 4, Jody.
Okay.
I feel not bad, though.
I think, yeah, for sure. I think he'll be better. Last year, the thing that bothered me sometimes with Tua was the just complete hesitancy to throw the ball down the field. Now, they have an offensive coordinator. Maybe that changes. Maybe getting Jalen Waddle changes things. I'm not saying they won't. I do think he'll improve. But top 10 for me is hard, only because when I look at the league, you got Mahomes, you got Rodgers, Allen, Wilson, Brady, Herbert, Dak back on the field. I like Ryan Tannehill a lot more than most. I think he's, you got Lamar. But I think he could be top half of the league. I could see that. Like, could he be Baker? Could he be Baker Mayfield? I think that's possible. I think Baker's probably around like 12 to 14 in the league. So I would go there. I think he could do that. Could he be a Derek Carr type? Another guy I have right in that window? Yeah, I think that's possible. And by the way, if he's that, the Dolphins are a really good team. The Dolphins are a playoff team, and they're right there in the mix. I mean, hell, they won 10 games last year, and the quarterback play was up and down all year long. So I think Miami's an interesting team. I don't buy New England. By the way, that was, if I didn't say Indy, New England would have been my pick. New England spent $250 million. I don't think they're any better. I think New England spent $250 million in the offseason, and I look at them, and I think they're the exact same football team they were a year ago. So I think that division's there as far as being in second. I don't think they'll be better than Buffalo, but I think Tua gets better because the weapons around them are better. Will Fuller's always hurt, but when he's on the field, he can play. They should be a 10 or 11 win team, in my opinion. And I think a lot of that will be because Tua is better than he was a year ago.
Last one from me, Matt. I was vindicated last year. I don't make too many hot takes, too many bold predictions in this business, but I've said for years the Patriot way was Tom Brady, and I felt vindicated. Yay or nay, Patriot way, Tom Brady?
Yay. and because without a good quarterback, you're screwed. And they don't have, unless Mac Jones steps up this year, they don't have a good quarterback. Look, Cam Newton's had a great career. Cam Newton was not good last year. Any excuse people want to give him, that's fine. Cam Newton was throwing the ball in the dirt by about week 10. Now, they had no weapons. They had no weapons. Like, I get it, but he was not good. Even when guys were open, he couldn't hit passes. I look at them, and like I just said, $250 million. Who did they add? I mean, everybody talks about Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry's never had 700 yards in a season, and Jonnu Smith has never had 500. Like, both of these guys have never produced in a serious way ever once in their careers. Like Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar, they're guys. Aguilar was good with the Raiders last year. That's fine, give him that. But it's not like you brought in somebody who's going to have 1,400 yards. I think the biggest guy they brought in was Judon. I really like him. I think he's a very good signing. I think Judon will be a nice piece. And they get some guys back from the COVID-19 list. I get all that. But what is their ceiling? 10 wins and getting bounced in the first round? Like in the AFC, they're not Kansas City. They're not Buffalo. They're not Cleveland or Baltimore. I don't think they're Tennessee. Like at best, they're the sixth best team in the conference. So, yes, when Brady left, so did any window of them winning a championship because he's Tom Brady. Like I think Bill Belichick's a great coach, but without Brady, what has Belichick ever won? Not much because he's never had another really good quarterback. If they get him another really good quarterback, they'll win and the Patriot way will be back. For now, the Patriot way is residing in Tampa.
And I think Mac Jones could be that quarterback. It's not going to be this year. You're right. Good luck getting to 10 wins and getting back to the playoffs, Bill. And kudos to you, Jeff Carr. Last year, major advantage, Brady. This year, duck and cover, Bill. It could get ugly. Matt, good to see you, brother. We appreciate you hopping on board. We'll tap into you plenty of times during the course of the year. Thanks for jumping on today.
Thanks for waiting for me. Storm was wreaking havoc, so I appreciate it.
Not a problem. That is Matt Verderame, does a great job, fansided.com. Let me tell you about his podcast as well. Stacking the Box is a phenomenal podcast, too. He is Matt Verderame. I'm Jody McDonald. He's Jeff Kerr. Damn, we're running late because we started late with Verderame. So you know what we got to do? We got to come back and put a bow on the show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.